Welcome back to Munchausen's Proxy, where we have been searching the field in which we grow our only to find that there are none to be given. What am I talking about? Why, the Acolyte, of course. While contemplating the monumental achievement that is the Acolyte, I kept coming back to the same question over and over. It is, in fact, the question where modern Hollywood is concerned. How did it get to the point where nobody, not showrunners, not directors, not producers, not executive producers, not studio heads, not distribution studio heads, nobody knows what good writing looks like anymore? At least not in Hollywood. The few good things they manage to make are almost made by accident. And sadly, there was no accident with the Acolyte. Every single second of that monumental achievement was done with malice aforethought. I knew Star Wars was dead. I knew I was apathetic to much of the post-mortem desecration that Lucasfilm and Disney were doing to the franchise. And I knew that everything coming from that studio would be soulless, creatively bankrupt feculence oozed out of the warped, perverse minds engaged by Kathleen Kennedy in her quest to erase George Lucas's creative fingerprints from all that is Star Wars. And the Acolyte was going to be her crowning achievement in doing so. And she did it. This is going to be short since I could barely get through one episode of the direct purported to be Star Wars. So let's get to it. Warning, this gets a little dark. This will not be in any coherent order or even overly spoilerish, except that certain scenes will be used to demonstrate the idiocy that is former Harvey Weinstein personal assistant Leslie Headland's interpretation of Kathleen Kennedy's perversion of Star Wars. The first scene was emblematic of what would follow. The $180 million production completely wastes the talent of Matrix franchise star Carrie-Anne Moss in one of the most moronic fight scenes I have ever seen. When you add into the fact that Moss is supposedly playing a Jedi Master by the name of Indara, it gets even worse. Not Jedi Knight, Jedi Master. A masked, 5', 2" 110-pound chick decides to pick a fight with her in a bar, bullying a number of others in the process. Halfway through the fight, Indara finally and incongruently wonders what this person is doing there. The fight ends, predictably given the media for the show, when the masked waif throws a knife at the bartender, quote-unquote distracting Indara so that she could knife Indara while Indara was saving the bartender with the Force. Did I mention that Indara was a Jedi Master? Think back to the second Star Wars movie, the one where Luke Skywalker is sitting in the swamps of Dagobah with Yoda, making him levitate multiple rocks, for reasons. There actually were reasons this time. One of them was so Luke would learn the ability to focus his use of the Force on multiple things simultaneously. Now, Luke was a latecomer to the Force. Indara was a master who would have practically grown up to use the Force from a young age, learning the lesson Luke was learning in his late teens to early 20s when she was still in single digits. Now, think back to what I just described as the opening scene of The Acolyte. How exactly do the imbecilic writers of this absolute dog shit of a show expect anyone who has seen any Star Wars produced by George Lucas to believe that Indara would be killed by such a ploy when it would be something the far less trained Luke Skywalker would have been able to defeat about a year into his training? But never mind, because we have our next scene that I will use to illustrate the stupidity of the people writing this drivel. A female mechanic who looks an awful lot like the killer is doing welding repairs to a starship when a fire erupts. In space. a fire erupts in space. I'm going to say that one more time because it bears repeating. They have a fucking fire erupting on the outside of the ship in fucking space. And at no point does this fire act like it is being fed fuel and oxygen from anything leaking. It acts like the surface it is burning is the source of the fuel, with oxygen being somewhere. Was there nobody on set with a science education higher than 3rd grade with the balls to speak up and call bullshit on that utter nonsense? But never mind, because that was not why the scene was being mentioned. At least, not the main reason. No, the mechanic winds up having a PTSD flashback to when she was a child and was in a fire. Kind of an odd occupation to go into if fire causes PTSD flashbacks. But okay. Anyway, this chick winds up being accused of murder of Endara because the bartender identified her as the killer. Mind you, she was systems away from where it happened, and likely caught on camera somewhere in that period, making it unlikely that she is the actual killer. So of course she was arrested. Remember, she is being accused of being able to murder a Jedi Master. So, do they send a handful of Jedi Masters to pick her up? No. Maybe a Jedi Master with a platoon of Jedi Knights and their Padawans? No. They send the weakest, lamest looking Jedi Knight in the history of Star Wars on film with his Padawan to pick up someone that went toe to toe with a Jedi Master and won. The Jedi Knight, being the brilliant individual that he is, leaves her on a transport ship with a lone droid to watch multiple prisoners while being transported. Let me repeat that, because it bears repeating. He leaves a suspected murderer of a Jedi Master on a transport ship with just a droid to watch her and the other prisoners. Of course they wind up escaping. The ship crashes with her on it, somehow alive, despite the fact that she went plummeting through the atmosphere, but she does escape custody. The chick that was in custody figures out the chick who killed Endara must be her twin, someone she thought long dead. Someone everybody watching the brain cell destroying inanity being displayed by Disney Plus knew long before they spelled it out for us. And it did not get any better from there. Even before I knew the Acolyte was going to be a thing, I was well into apathy land with Star Wars. For more on that, see my video titled How My Love of Star Wars Died, linked in the description below. The closest I have gotten to hope for Star Wars since the soul-destroying The Last Jedi and the grave-pissing The Rise of Skywalker was Season 1 of The Mandalorian, which was quickly dashed by Season 2 of The Mandalorian. Andor had a hint of a spark of hope, but was weighed down by its slow pacing and characters that nobody really cared about, despite having decent writing, acting, and production value. Nothing else has been anything other than franchise-obliterating fusillades aimed at the corpse of the once greatest cinematic franchise in the history of the world. The Acolyte is worse than that. Derived from the High Republic, a failed attempt by Kathleen Kennedy to remake the early history of Star Wars in her image, The Acolyte was never going to be good. Add in former Harvey Weinstein's personal assistant Leslie Headland, a woman who described the show as Frozen meets Kill Bill, activist writers and actors who saw the show as a platform for their causes and social engineering, and a fan base that had spent the last 7 years being abused by the people running the franchise, and this was never going to turn out well for anyone other than the activists. As I said in my short before I went out of town, the Acolyte is what every clear-thinking individual who gave enough of a shit to opine thought it would be. The fact that it took me this long to get a video out about it shows how apathetic I have become to a franchise I grew up loving. Star Wars has become nothing more than a heavily decomposed corpse that Kathleen Kennedy likes to parade around in public to show her power, occasionally bending said corpse over a table and molesting it to get her power-tripping jollies off. And no, nothing will save it. That is all I have for this video. Sorry if it got a little dark there at the end, but it is what it is. Please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share the video, and comment down below. It all helps out the channel and is greatly appreciated. I will get back to working on the final installment of DC Comics on Film, and it should be out soonish. Until then, tschüss.